Brittney Griner, imprisoned by Russia for more than 3 months, may have pleaded guilty to a minor drug charge, but she has worked the media to raise the profile of her outrageous case. First, she wrote a letter to President Biden saying, "I'm terrified. I might be here forever." And the basketball player's wife, Sherelle Griner, started doing interviews, including on CBS Mornings.
Respectfully, we're over 140 days at this point. That does not work. And so I will not be quiet anymore. They are not moving. They are not doing anything. And so my wife is struggling, and we have to help her.
Joining us now from Dallas, Steve Krakauer, who writes the Fourth Watch newsletter on the media. And Steve, President Biden was deliberately keeping this low key, but as a result of this media push, he had phone calls with both Brittney Griner's wife and Kamala Harris speaking to her as well. How effective has their media strategy been?
I think it's smart, and I think it's worked out well. You know, going back to a segment that you did a couple ago about the media sort of turning on this Biden administration. I mean, we got the Sleepy Joe during the election. Now we've got the Sleepy Joe Biden administration. I mean, it really seems like it takes a lot to get some action, and we're seeing the media do this in the post-Dobbs world, and I think we're seeing this effectively with the Griner camp right now. I mean, as you mentioned, months this has been going on, and it actually really started about a month ago when we got news that a phone call that was supposed to happen between Brittney Griner and her wife did not, because of the Biden administration's failure to connect them on a weekend at the State Department when no one was there to take this call. That was an AP story that then led to an MSNBC interview, and then it really got this ball rolling. But we've seen it in issue after issue. It does not seem to be any sort of urgency with this administration unless you use the media to really kind of force them to do something about it.
And that's what they concluded. Now, look, it can't be easy when you're essentially held hostage in a Russian jail for bringing in hash oil. And yes, that was stupid, but Russians routinely get suspended sentences for that sort of thing, to call out the President of the United States. But didn't that in turn really generate a lot of coverage? I started seeing a lot more stories about Brittney Griner and how long she has been held by the Vladimir Putin regime.
Absolutely. They've used the media effectively. But you look at it, because this is not just an ordinary case. This is one of the highest profile WNBA players, black, LGBT. And, you know, Joe Biden just had a couple of the Team USA sort of team members of hers at the White House this week. And there's Brittney Griner in jail, essentially, as you mentioned, like a hostage here. But this is about, it's like a PR victory for Russia right now. And this is why it's so important that the Biden administration take this seriously and not kind of kowtow to Russia, or try to, as you mentioned, sweep it under the rug and not really pay attention to it, not really, you know, take this as seriously as they could. This is a major national security issue. I believe that the Russians would use this. They've got this great kind of PR element to wield right now at the Americans as they imprison Brittney Griner. As you mentioned, she's pled guilty, but that's really, you know, a tactic of hers
to move the process forward. And look, there's absolutely no question. You know, I understand trying low-key diplomacy at first, but there's absolutely no question the Russians want to trade her for another prisoner. They've actually identified somebody, 25-year hardened criminal, and we don't know whether that'll happen. But the media message here, I think, is a very emotional one from Brittney and her wife, which is, we can't be quiet anymore. And you're right, there is a sort of a parallel to the other stuff we were talking about with this president, which is then he was forced to deal with it much more openly and forcefully, and all the coverage that followed. Final thought.
Yeah, it's funny. It seems like the second administration in a row where how do you get through to them? The Trump administration, now the Biden administration, through the media. You know, and maybe the former president was a little bit more interested in cable news and what was happening there. This administration maybe a little bit more in what's happening on the New York Times or the Washington Post. But how do you get your position out there? And I think the Griner camp has learned this very well. You do it through the media. You use the media to wield power, social media, Twitter, get it trending, and get the administration on the record to respond to it, because they don't want to deal with this. They don't want to deal with it publicly. They don't want to deal with the fallout of it, and they have to now.
Well, Steve Krakauer, thanks very much. And right, we all hope that she is released sooner rather than later. That's it for this edition of Media Buzz.